We be live.
Hello.
Hello, guys. We're gonna be answering questions. We're gonna be answering patron questions, and then we're gonna be talking to our YouTube members. So if you want us to answer your questions, become a patron. Link in the description. And if you want to come join us and talk to me live on air, become a YouTube member. So we'll go through the patron questions, and then after we're done with the patron questions, I'll post a link on the community tab. And if you're interested in coming in and talking to me live on air and asking your questions, just click on the link in the community tab. The link will only be available to our YouTube members, and you could come and talk to me. So again, different perks for different ways that you support us. Patrons get to post their questions a day. These questions came to us a day ahead of time, right? So we post the link to this live stream a day ahead, and patrons send us their questions for me and Susie to answer. That's what the patron gets, and the YouTube members on the day that we go live, they get the link and they come and talk to us live on it. All right. Okay, guys. So we have some patron questions. Susie, do you want to highlight them and we can answer them?
Yes, I'm ready. And Christopher is reminding everyone to please like this video. It helps our channel a
Yes.
lot, and it is a free way to support us. Oh, and also, I'd like to recognize that StreamYard is showing us that Alex just became a YouTube member. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member, Alex. If you guys are YouTube members, you guys also get access to all of our emojis, which
Yes.
are a lot of fun. I became a member just for the emojis. Higgs Boson is asking a question about Iran today. This was interesting. Is the IRGC like a mafia? Are they involved in drug dealing?
Yes, they are involved in drug dealing. They're also involved in kidnapping. The mafia also does the kidnapping. But I mean, what is the official definition of mafia? Actually,
That's a
let's
good
look at.
question.
Also, let's look at the IRGC's drug dealing. It's very.
Ooh, I didn't actually know about the drug dealing.
Oh, you
I'm
didn't
not
know?
surprised.
No, they have Iran's proxies traffic drugs across the region to raise funds. Yes, they do. IRGC smashes large gang smuggling drugs to Europe. Okay, so they stop drug dealers, but they also are drug dealers.
I'm
Right?
sensing a little bit of a conflict of interest here. Like maybe
Yeah.
they're trying to control the market. Just an idea.
Yeah. So, like, we have analysis tracing Iran's Quds Force links to illegal drug deals, the drug market, Islamic Revolutionary Guards, and the problem of they're very much involved in drug dealing, and also Hezbollah is also which is another proxy of the Iranian regime. They're also involved in drug dealing, right? So, and assassinations also of opposition groups, key figures that are against Iranian interest. Well, not Iranian interest. The Islamic Republic's interest, both inside Iran and outside Iran. So yeah, they're very much mafia-like. But are
The
they
definition
actual?
the definition of a mafia is an organized international body of criminals operating. Oh wait, this gives me the original definition because it's saying operating in Sicily. Well,
Okay.
no, this is not exclusive to Italy.
Okay, then they're not.
Any organized group using extortion and other criminal methods. A closed group of people in a particular field having a controlling influence.
Okay, then they are the mafia. Then they are mafia based on that definition. They are mafia, no?
I think so.
Let me see. Does the
People usually
IRGC?
think of it as organized crime done by civilians. So that would be one key difference is these are not civilians, but it is definitely organized crime. Like it's a criminal conspiracy. Maybe. Yeah.
I wanted to check if the IRGC had any activities in Sicily, just to see, just to see maybe they also fit the first definition as well, because you never know because they are involved everywhere. So they have been involved in in places that I have been surprised. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Anyways,
So this next question is very interesting to me too. Higgs Boson is asking, why are people making a big deal on Biden's and Mohammed bin Salman's fist bump? What did MBS get from the Biden visit? The question in general is, what did anyone get from Biden's Middle East trip? Armin, I'd
okay.
just like to hear your general analysis of Biden's Middle East trip, honestly.
Oh my God, that would be like a 2 hour conversation at least. Okay, so first of all, the big deal is that Biden was very aggressive on on his campaign for presidency as
Mm-hmm.
anti Saudi Arabia and anti MBS, talking about them as a pariah state that have lost credibility and over human rights violations. And one of the reasons why I was very supportive of this line of of the Biden administration was because Biden's presidency was the aggressive stance that he was taking against Saudi Arabia, and actually um, making their human rights violations, especially what they were doing in Yemen, a serious issue. Like Biden was
Mm.
helping highlight that, right? um, and to be fair to Biden's administration relative to Trump, he has been a lot more aggressive against positions of Saudi Arabia, and he has been forcing Saudi's hands to um, try to move out of Yemen. Like a lot of people keep thinking like Biden should have done more, but it seems like pulling the lack of support for the war in Yemen did push Saudi Arabia into more aggressive peace talks with the Houthis and everyone else, right? Like it did have results, okay? However, the reason why a lot of people are looking at this and saying that this was a big deal because it seemed like Biden is being a hypocrite, right? Because the person that you were accusing of being like a monster or a violator of human rights, now you're doing a fist bump with him, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so that's why this is a huge deal because now they're like we people talk about human rights but economy and money is always the highest priority. Like when you don't need them, you could you know talk big, but as soon as the situation turns into so money speaks first, right? But again, I want to mention that you could it's a fair criticism, but Biden did manage to push Saudi Arabia in a position that they had to make more aggressive peace talks with the Yemen to try to stop the Yemeni war. They did do that, okay. um, and the situation that we're in right now, you might act like, oh, human rights violations are now being ignored in favor of economy, but economy is about human lives, right? Like you cannot just dismiss the economy as like, oh, so human rights don't matter, money is the only thing that matters. Well, money is also human rights is about protecting humans. Money is also about protecting humans, okay. Like the war the Biden administration is trying to make it so that there's more energy available in the market,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that reliance on Russia does not force everybody back into supporting Putin's aggressions against Ukraine, right? Like, so here's another hypocrisy that a lot of people will point to, right? They're like, okay, so we were sanctioning Russia because of their war in Ukraine. This is actually the most fair criticism, okay? But we're now going back to begging Saudi Arabia to provide energy in the market, even though they are responsible for the war in Yemen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen is a much greater violations of human rights than Putin's war on Ukraine, like the number
Yeah.
of people who are suffering. So
Oh
why are
yeah.
we rewarding him in order to be able to punish Putin, right?
That's some good criticism.
Yeah. So if I want to provide the counter narrative to that is that, well, because one of them is moving in the wrong direction, the other one is moving maybe ever so slightly into accepting, stopping the war, right? So Putin's direction, even though Saudi Arabia's crimes against the Yemenis people is a lot worse, it's moving. It seems to be moving in the direction that to end the war. Okay, Putin is not moving in the direction to end the war. So you need to provide carrots to the person. You need to give sticks to the person that is not moving in the right direction, and carrots to the person that is ever so slightly moving in the right direction. Maybe. But also it's a position of desperation because it's not just about energy, okay? It's also about Iran. Okay.
Oh my
And
gosh. I just added a question to the chat. I'm taking over the patron Q&A to ask my own question at the end of this about Putin's trip to Iran because holy cow. Anyways, continue.
no, but okay, so it was basically complicated, right? The Saudi Arabia is such an important part of creating an alliance in the Middle East, right? To cause stability, okay? Because again, these are geopolitics is not black and white, okay? The Saudi regime is evil, okay? However, you cannot, when it comes to making decisions to what to do to benefit the highest number of people possible, you cannot be like, okay, well, they're evil, then we cannot deal with them, okay? Because you could cause more evil by having such a simplistic, cartoonishly black and white framework, right? You have to understand that you could push Saudi Arabia to stop their war in Yemen, but you also cannot ignore them when it comes to providing stability in the Middle East. You cannot ignore them. They're such an important part of the equation. You have to sometimes negotiate with evil, and that's just reality. I also think that it's part of the responsibility is on people. Okay, like we have, if you want to free up the U.S. administration's hands to not have to deal with rewarding a regime like Saudi Arabia in order to provide some stability in the Middle East, or to be able to more aggressively take a stance against regimes like Putin's regime, is for you to switch to alternative forms of energy. Okay, like that is
Very good point.
partly your responsibility. Don't just look at politicians. Like if you want to free up their hand, just like figure out ways to switch to alternative sources. Don't just look at other people to provide solutions for you. Be part of the solution.
I want nuclear power. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Wait, but there was something else I wanted to ask. So I feel like Americans don't give a crap about Biden's Middle East trip. I feel like this isn't doing well domestically. I don't know if you have a sense of that, but I feel like Americans are like, why are we doing this? Like, we have so much going on domestically that needs to be addressed. Like, his message behind the trip wasn't clear, or communicating to the public our interests in why we go about doing this. Because people are like,
the JCPOA deal seems to be like going nowhere. Okay.
it's on life support.
And Iran has two officials in Iran have confirmed that they are able to that they are able to make nuclear weapons. Okay, not nuclear energy. Okay, like they are publicly announcing that in their readiness to make nuclear weapons. Okay, they are becoming, and by the way, they say like we don't want to, but we can. Okay, Iran is becoming more and more mask off when it comes to their interest in becoming a nuclear power when it comes to weaponry, not just energy. And United States, as much as it wants to do a pivot to Asia, the world cannot tolerate a nuclear Iran. I mean, it might have to at some point, okay?
Oh my God.
But Israel, the thing is that this is such a threat and crisis to the existence of Israel. And if United States completely moves out of the Middle East, Israel and Iran wants to go fully nuclear, Israel will eventually drag back United States back to the Middle East, right? So this would be a very costly leaving and then coming back. This is not sustainable, okay? And to be able to, and this is something that the whole world should be worried about, because if Iran goes nuclear, it's not going to end with Iran. There will be a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Other countries, Saudi Arabia would want one, okay? And this will become more of a normalization of countries going nuclear, and especially with the with the whole understanding of Ukraine being able to be invaded because they gave up their nuclear weapons. With that framework, we are basically making Armageddon more and more possible. Okay, I'm not saying it's likely, but I'm just saying that this is what the whole world should be. More countries having nuclear weapons is a world that is more, that the extinction of mankind becomes more and more likely. Okay, I'm not saying it's possible. I'm just saying, like, even if it goes from 0.5% to 0.75%, that is like everybody should be concerned about this. Okay, and that's why no matter what problem, like, again, we should be very concerned about the people in Yemen. Okay, but when it comes to trying to end an evil so big that could end the human race, you have to deal with evils like Saudi Arabia just to provide stability. Like, it's worth it. It's worth. Unfortunately, it's worth the cost. Again, if this is not about Americans or Iranians or Israelis or Yemenis, this is. There are few things that are this big of a threat to humanity. Okay, this is about everyone. And everybody, if the fact that people are not paying attention to this is very concerning. Okay, because the only other thing that I could think of that is like this consequential is climate change, right? And again, switching to alternative energy resolves can help resolve both of these issues, right? That's why it's such an important thing for people to switch to alternative energies. Yeah.
What's your favorite alternative energy? What do you like the most?
Nuclear. Yeah.
Man, I want to continue to talk about this, but we should go
Wait,
to the other.
do you think the rest of the world could say that the only country that dropped a nuclear bomb was the U.S.? Yeah, well, that was the past. You have to look at what's more likely in the future, okay? What's more, like, people who want to be, keep focusing on the past are incapable of coming up with an analysis of what. By the way, having a nuclear arms race is like more. What I'm talking about is our nukes that are a lot more powerful than that and are world ending. Okay, if we ever start something like that. Okay, again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying we don't want it to, for the chances of that to increase. Second of all, what was happening in the past is in the past. Okay, like, you have to be so simplistic to just not try to look at what we're dealing with right now and try to come up with this is such a whataboutism. Whataboutism. Just pointing back. Instead of trying to look at the best ways to move forward, just keep pointing at the past and not being able to have any discussions about how to how to avoid even worse crimes happening ever again. I mean, if you want to do that, you could talk about how far back do you want to go? You know what I mean? Are you going to be like, are you going to be blame like, oh well, it was the Arabs that like invaded, you know, so many different countries? Are you gonna like oh my god, watch out for the Arabs, they might do it again? You know what I mean? Are you gonna go and be like, hey, what, somebody keep an eye on the Mongols, remember what they did last time? They like, are you gonna like, what are you gonna do? Right? It's so stupid.
I don't know what's going on, but just keep an eye out.
Yeah.
I like the way you said that. You remember what they did last time? What did they do last time?
I mean, like, people don't do that with Germany. People don't do that with Japan.
Yes, people do.
I mean,
They definitely do.
Sane people today are not worried about like Germany like invading half of Europe. Sane people are not worried about Japan, for example, like attacking China or the Philippines and like, you know, killing babies and raping women. People are not worried about the Japanese army doing that because it's just America. It's just always America. Like, oh, remember what they did? They're like, okay, what is more likely right now? Right now. Anyways, let's move on.
Okay, next question is from Higgs Boson, and he's asking, will Rishi Tsunnak be the next UK Prime Minister? I don't think the United Kingdom has had a non-white Prime Minister before. Have you been following the UK political drama saga?
No. Is she? Well, what do you have? You?
Very broadly, not in detail. I have no idea how likely it is that Rishi will be the next UK Prime Minister. I was watching some analysis that they're basically saying that he might not have enough support within this Conservative Party to actually make it happen. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know.
What is his position on Ukraine?
I don't know.
Okay, because that's my concern. That was my main concern. Sunnak's confident commentary on the conflict has been uploaded, demonstrating he is more than a bean counter and added weight to the chance. Okay,
What?
I don't know. No, I don't know. Like, I don't know what this means, but I am more interested in seeing, because I was concerned over the fact that UK was such a good supporter of Ukraine right now against Russia, and I was just worried that we're going to lose that with this transfer. Sunak said that that's his last name, right? Yeah. Sunak said that although the UK is proud to stand with Ukraine, it is not cost-free for the UK. The Office for Budget Responsibility says it's too early to know the full impact of the war on the UK's cost of living, and cost of energy inflation could average 7.5% in 2021. Sunak's confident commentary on the conflict has been uploaded. Okay, I don't understand this. So what is he going to do? We stand with Ukraine, but the war is denting UK's economy. Okay, so it seems like he's going to pull support.
He's very hesitant.
Yeah. Okay, so that's my main concern right now.
Higgs Boson is asking, in other words, will the UK allow a non-white person to be put in the place of the minister? Yeah. Okay,
so why are we noticing his color? Like, I'm more interested in his position. I think UK am I wrong to assume that UK is not past the point where they are not going to vote for a person because he's not white? I don't think UK is.
I would never think that. I would never think that. Sure, there's going to be some racists, but like.
Yeah, I think the vast majority.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm very naive. Okay, here, but I think UK is a country that is past that point a long time ago, right? And if there's anything that has stopped people from being in a position of power for their skin color, it's not because people don't vote for them. It's because of things that exist within the system that are invisible to people, and even if people are not racist, somehow results in people who are people of color not end up being in a position of power, right? But once they get into, because I think people's explicit racism is not there as much as it used to be. I think once they're given the opportunity, then if they are not elected, it's not going to be because of their skin color. I don't think the UK citizens are at all in the position that they wouldn't be like, okay, no, thank you, you are not white. I don't think so. Maybe I'm like wrong about that, but I don't think so. What do you? Am I misreading these? What do people think in the left chat?
No, I agree. That's what I think. Higgs boson thinks that the UK is inherently racist.
Why? UK is less racist, like
Than
than the
most
United
countries in the world.
than even the United States. And the United States had a black president. I mean, half non-white president.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like isn't the UK less racist than the United States? Like, why are you so
Pretty
pessimistic?
sure. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, Higgs boson. Where are you getting this from?
Um. Should we move into the next question?
Oxymoron doesn't like this guy. Why? Why doesn't oxymoron? Is it has something to do with anyone? Okay. Yeah, but I just want to see if there's anyone. Look, oxymoron says skin matters a lot, but can be easily overcome, especially if Tories love you. I don't think skin that matters that much in the UK. I don't think so. Higgs boson is saying the way Rishi was attacked for his father-in-law connection. I thought, okay, father-in-law connection. I'm pretty sure any politician, like what was he accused of? Like, do you think like the way that he was attacked? I'm sure like yeah, what you have to demonstrate is that if he was a white politician and similar stories existed about somebody in his family, those attacks would not be there. I mean, given that
Yeah.
they're
Wait, that doesn't make any sense. The whole reason why Boris Johnson got pushed out was for like scandals. For personal scandals. Like.
no, that's not a fair comparison because Boris Johnson, those personal scandals were things that he's responsible for, right? There's Higgs boson is saying that these are things that he's not responsible for. It's like people in his family. He didn't do anything wrong, but I'm just saying, like, fair. The attacks is fair. It's fair point to say that these attacks are unfair. But what you have to demonstrate is that these unfair attacks would not have been there if he was white. Can you demonstrate that? Yeah. Anyways, let's move on.
Yeah, let's go to the next question. Higgs boson is asking, China has deployed tanks in front of banks now to prevent people from entering. Do you think history is almost close to repeating itself? So, some of the background to this question is that there has been a lot of social unrest in China because of bank runs, essentially, and people refusing to pay their mortgages for a more complicated reason, housing speculation. And then is history almost close to repeating itself seems to refer to the pro-democracy protests of Tiananmen Square. I don't know, Armin, what do you think? What do you think of this larger economic crisis in China in general? It's kind of scary because if China's having issues, we're all going to have the rest of the world is going to have a lot of issues.
Yeah, this is different. Okay, first of all, because this time, I don't think like China is going to do the same, killing of people that it used to do. Right? I think the constant like the backlash to that globally is something that China cannot tolerate because what is going through right now is not a crisis for human rights violations. It's mostly a crisis for economic situations, and if you a backlash from the global community would make that economic crisis a bigger crisis, right? So China would like to avoid that. And another difference is that the people's investments and life savings are going away, right? This is different from before because that was about human rights and being able to protest and hold governments accountable. This is like, this is more like, where's my money, bitch? Right? This is
Yeah, yeah,
more
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
right. But
Knock, knock, knock. Where is it?
yeah, but okay, this is one thing that you would probably want, I mean, for the Chinese government to succeed because
Yeah.
yeah, because this is not something like if you're like, haha, China's economy, look at China. Like, this is gonna hurt your pocket. Like, literally
Explain
everyone.
that.
Okay, well, I
How?
mean, explain that how. Like, China is involved in the global economy in a way that it wasn't before at that time. Like, it has, is part of the supply, but also now demand. It's like both
Hmm.
seller and buyer of many goods within the global economy. It's such a big player in the global economy that if China gets hit, if China's bubble bursts, the entire global market will take a massive hit. And I think everybody has been understanding that China's market, the real estate market, and many other markets in China are bubbles. The idea is that we're hoping that the CCP, the Chinese government, is successful in slowly deflating this bubble rather than letting it burst. Okay, like everybody, the Chinese government also understand that this is a bubble. Okay, so a run on the banks is like, looks like more of a burst than a deflation. Like, because
Hmm.
so what you want to do, like the prices are a lot more than the value. That's what a bubble is like, right? Especially in real estate. That's why you have a whole bunch of ghost towns in China, right? And because there's not that much alternatives to investments in China, a lot of people's life savings are tied into real estate because that's the only option for real investments, and like the only investment that seems to always go up, right? And because people just buy property not to live in it but just to be able to invest in it,
For
there's
speculation.
yeah, there's so much more properties than needed. There's
Yeah.
so much more house, and their values do not represent the demand for properties. That eventually has to adjust itself. And there's so many things that are tied in China's economy that is tied into the real estate market that if that gets a hit, everything takes a hit. Everything is going to take a hit. And if China's economy takes a hit, the global market is going to take a hit, right? So the government is like, okay, how do we bring down the value of these properties without letting it like drop like a rock, right? So the Chinese government is interested in making sure that these properties lose their value, but not like all of a sudden. The reason why they're interested in making it lose the value because they know it has to come down at some point. The price
Hmm.
eventually has to get closer to the actual value. So how do you make it, like maybe like we help them a little bit, but also remove the incentives for investment here a little bit. Oh my god, it's dropping too fast. Like bring back the incentives. Like it's just like, but if here's another thing in China, like a lot of people are noticing that one way to protest, okay, is just to not pay your mortgages, okay, because you can't
Yeah.
come out and by the way, we're seeing the fact that we're seeing protests in China right now is unprecedented, right? Like this is not a country that allows protests, right? But things must be for a lot of people. Like imagine all your savings in the bank and all in real estate just like getting wiped out, right? And especially people are realizing that the value of their investment is worth a lot less than they actually think. Like people are realizing that, right? And if you stop investing into real estate, then the value of the other people's property will drop as well, right? This is really scary. Okay, um, so there's two ways of protesting right now in China. One is to actually come out protest, right? Which is amazing that people are still doing that. And one way to do that is not to pretend like I don't know, pretend or actually not protest against the main government, but to protest against local government. They're like,
Exactly.
yeah, they're like, oh, we're like central government, we love you, like come help
If they
us
were just in control, this would be fine.
yeah,
It's this
yeah.
local
If
government that made this
yeah,
so
it's
bad.
the local government that we have an issue with. Of course, we're not against the
We
CCP.
still love
Okay,
you, Big Daddy central
we still
government.
love you, but like they think this is a local issue. Like they're protesting, saying that this is a local issue, right? This is with all the respect to the CCP and everything, right? But this narrative is being challenged because they're noticing that if it's a local issue, then why is it happening in different parts of China? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is it
Uh-oh.
happening in multiple areas separate from each other, right? So it seems like it's a China issue, not like a local province issue. Um,
Hmm.
there are like even people holding signs like if Mao was here, this would not have happened. Like people holding pictures of Mao, and like Mao would have saved us from this. I'm like, oh no, 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 no. And this is, but but it's a good, even though that's stupid because you know Mao would make everything worse.
Yeah.
It's a smart political move. Okay, it's really hard for you to be attacked if you're holding pictures of Mao and be like so being so patriotic. You're like, you know, maybe like one way for you to be able to protest in China is to hold pictures of Mao. Okay. No, seriously. Like, for example, like when they attacked Japanese restaurants, because when there was at that time when they were extremely racist, because there was a conflict with Japan and all, like, and they were attacking Japanese cars or Japanese restaurants, right? They weren't. If you had pictures of Mao in your restaurant or like any some patriotic like, people wouldn't like. Okay, it would
Okay, you
be
know what this reminds me of?
lower chances of attack. Yeah.
This reminds me, I think you had an idea for a blasphemy, no, an anti-blasphemy bodysuit where you would be covered with the name of Allah and Muhammad so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
couldn't get attacked because then they would
Yeah.
be attacking the name of Allah. Like, it's
Yeah.
the same thing. Where
Yeah. So like Chinese protesters, they just need to like have like put pictures of Mao all over them, and then go to protest, and they're like, "You can't hit me because I have pictures of Mao." No, I'm just like it's not like that, but I'm just saying it's a strategic move if you are like showing like if you're. I see that in Iran as well, right? There are certain protesters that are coming out, like sometimes come out and are trying to complain about economic issues. Okay, this was used to be back in the day. Now it's not like that. Okay, but, a couple of years ago, but there also be like show loyalty to the Islamic Republic and Khamenei. Like okay, to just to be able to protest safely. Okay,
Mhm.
now it's not like that. Now anybody who comes out during the protest says something positive about Khamenei, they're like booed by the crowd,
You're
right?
gonna get yeeted out of there.
Yeah. But like, I think like this is a new era, guys. Like this
Mhm.
is a new beginning for China because like I don't know if people understand how unprecedented it is for people to just come out in the street and protest. But again, I was saying like for people who you see like collect groups of people in a building together, for example, deciding that okay, we're not going to pay our mortgage, okay, and this is a this is a type of protest that the Chinese government is not used to deal with. Okay, because surveillance helps you with watching people, avoiding people doing things. Okay, but when it comes to people not doing things, there's it's
Inaction.
yeah, inaction as a form of protest. That's really hard to like. How do we deal with this? Like you can't like especially when it's done and they're clever about it because all of a sudden a collective giant group of people decided to do that in one area at the same time, like, and they're like, okay, like how could we go and force these people to pay the mortgage, like, and people are like, we don't even have the money, like, are you gonna give us like, what are you gonna do? Right? So but this is like a big taboo also as well, like because in China a lot of people have been brainwashed to be just follow the law, follow the rules, keep your head down, don't get into trouble. Like things are escalating, and I think what sparked people realizing that like in China, like noticing that their rebellious tendencies all of a sudden flaring up and understanding like is big. It was the lockdowns. It was the
Mhm.
lockdowns because I think the lockdowns was so harsh that when some people started to be like, okay, we need to fight this, we need to say something, and even the people who did not say anything, they noticed like, we get to complain. Like, wait, is that a thing? Like complaining and rebelling and asking, that's a. I guess that's the thing now. I guess we can do that. And if more and more people notice that, eventually, and this is what the CCP is the most terrified about, right? More and more people complaining or showing their opposition and not regretting the consequences, because if that spreads more and more, eventually China will go back to, they were basically realizing that the CCP has lost the mandate of heaven for a while now. Right? So we'll see. Yeah.
For a while now. Okay.
Yeah.
This next question is from D. D is asking, what are your thoughts on news media paywalls? I understand that even the news is a business, but doesn't this contribute to misinformation for the most vulnerable, i.e., the poor, who may be the most inclined to fall for conspiracy theories and propaganda? What would be a better alternative? I'm going to be completely honest. I'm just very adept at getting past paywalls.
Yes.
To me, that's the solution. I don't know. I didn't say no. It's not like a good thing.
I mean, okay, so if you look at both sides, first of all, these news media paywall outlets, they're not charity organizations. So you're like, oh, this is going to cause this problem. I'm like, okay, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to be like, well, okay, let's go bankrupt for the sake of making sure poor people have access to information? Like, yeah, no, sorry, we're like, we need to pay our employees. I'm sorry, thank you very much. We can't, like, this is not a charity organization, right? So that's one thing. Also, what is the solution? The solutions are competition and alternatives, right? Like, I don't know, YouTube. So
I
yeah,
think,
more.
honestly, I think a bigger problem besides news media outlets might be um, paywalls for getting academic journals. Like science
Yeah,
itself is so
go-
inaccessible. It's very expensive unless you're part of
government.
an institution. Yeah.
The government should get involved. Like, this is like those. The government should be like paying for all that to make it accessible to everybody. Like, yeah, I mean, it's within the interest of the government. Government's investing into making science more accessible has often historically paid off. Like, the money that the government spends in making science accessible is less
Mhm.
than the financial benefits to society, right?
Yeah, there's so
So
many problems with it. The whole
yeah,
system.
these a lot of these scientific papers are already publicly funded. So I would say that they should have been
Exactly.
accessible to public. So why are they not publicly accessible if they're being publicly funded? But I don't understand that.
Because the editorial journal needs to pay for its own operations.
Okay, well, I think like it's an easy case to make for the government to just pay for all of this to be free. But I don't if I don't expect these institutions themselves, if they can't maintain their costs without doing stuff like this, the expectation shouldn't
Mhm.
be on the media outlets or the scientific journals themselves to be like, oh, just don't ask for money. Like, things
Well, yeah,
cost
because
money.
that doesn't serve anyone. They just go into the ground, so then nothing that they could give to the benefit of society would even exist anymore. So,
Exactly.
um, okay, I have a question that I want to ask you now, Armin, but I don't know if you've had a chance to look into this yet. What do you think about Putin's trip to Iran?
Okay, this is
This,
something that I could also keep talking about for an hour or two. Okay, but
can
this
you do a
is
secular jihadists episode about it?
maybe, but
A
this
whole
is
deep
also a
dive.
reaction to Biden's visit. Okay, I mean, that's what it's being seen like, Biden
Mm.
coming to the Middle East with his buddies, and Putin is coming to the Middle East with his buddies. Okay, and also Iran is kind of saying Iran is also feeling. So I don't know, which one do you want me to analyze first, from the perspective of Iran's regime or Putin? Which one do you want to do first?
I would like to hear your thoughts on how this symbolizes the isolation of both.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so Iran is trying to show a position of strength because it's noticing more and more countries, because of the JCPOA deal not going through, more and more countries around its region, including Iraq now, are siding with its enemies, including Iraq, which is supposed to be Iran's best buddy right now in the situation. So Iran is trying to show, like, well, you have your allies and we have ours. Okay. But that's not a fair comparison, because Israel, if it went to war with Iran, the United States will come and defend Israel. Russia is not going to go to war against Israel to support Iran. Like, that's like a ridiculous, right? And also, Putin is now in a position, because Putin's position, relationship with Iran has been very one-sided in benefit of Russia for a while now. Okay, but because of Russia's isolation through sanctions and political, and because of the war that they have, Russia kind of now is a lot of in need of Iran's help as well, right? So they're positioning, the gap between their position, their negotiation power is becoming lower and lower, right? So much so that Putin probably requires Iran's expertise into avoiding sanctions, because for the first time, Russia has now been sanctioned more than Iran, right? So this is crazy. But also,
I forgot about that. That is crazy.
Right. But also, news, I don't know if you guys have heard this, Russia is buying drones from Iran. And this has been crazy, okay? Because first of all, the pro Iranian regime people are loving this, okay? Because they were made fun of by the opposition for not having military capabilities. But now they're like, look, Russia needs us for drones. Like, look at where we are in the world. Look at the pro-regime people are saying, we are now in a position where one of the former superpowers in the world doesn't have enough weapons for its war, and it has to come to us. And our weapon that we manufacture is good enough for Russia that is seen as a military power that provides weaponry to so many countries, is now begging us for drones. And also, they're using this to show the opposition that they were wrong, because a lot of the opposition against the Islamic Republic of Iran constantly says that Russia is kind of like has made Iran its little bitch. Like, it's basically the relationship between Russia and Iran is so one-sided that Iran has become just like a dog on a leash that Russia just points to different direction for its own interests, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, how do you like me now, right? Like, basically, look, like we're not begging them for anything; they're begging us for drones, right? And these are, by the way, and Iran has become like, and if Russia thinks Iranian drones are good enough, like, then Saudi Arabia has to be very concerned, because these are the same. A couple of years ago, Iran had drones advanced enough for the Houthis to target
the
Aramco
UAE.
site. Yeah, UAE and Aramco, right? So it shows that Iran has gotten to a high enough level to be for its own weapons, like to be advanced enough to be good enough for Russia. That means Israel and Saudi Arabia both have to be very concerned. Okay. Another thing to be concerned about. Another thing, but if you want to like think about the counter narrative, is that actually Iran and Russia are just desperate. They're both desperate. Like they're both being cornered by the global community, and this is just like people who have been pushed aside, countries that have been pushed aside by the global community, just coming together. And it's nothing like, look, on one side you have Iran and Russia. Russia has been proven to be much weaker than other people assumed. Okay, and on the other side you have global power, so this is not even comparable. So I'm just giving you both sides of this narrative, right? But this has been very symbolic, and also Turkey was there as well, I think, like, so that was part of another part of the talks. But anyways, so we'll see where this goes. Another important thing is that Russia has been seen as part of the reason why the JCPOA deal has been falling apart. Okay, and Russia was, because Iran having normal relationships with Western countries, it was never within the interest of Russia. Both because
That's true.
Yeah, both because Russia wouldn't want Iran to be a competitor in the market with it when it comes to gas and oil, but also because being able to use Iran as a negotiating tool against the Western powers has been something that Russia has been very much interested in, right?
Well, because they also keep Iran under its thumb in the process.
Exactly. So seeing all of this conflict happening in the Middle East with Iran, and getting Israel and Saudi Arabia and the UAE and all these countries trying to contain Iran, and with the help of United States, and then at the same time seeing Russia so transparently taking the side of the country that everybody's concerned about, basically confirms all, like, suggests that this has all been a Russian plot. You know what I mean? This has always been using Iran as a destabilizing element within the Middle East, has been paying off for Russia, and they're going to continue to play that role. But we'll see. Yeah.
I just thought it was so significant because I was thinking about, before Russia invaded Ukraine, that trip that Raisi did to go visit Putin. And remember that long freaking table that Raisi had to sit at the end of? Like, so much distance. The famous long tables. And just to see them now is such a contrast. That it was such a visual... That seemed like such an important visual to me. And when was the last time a major head of state visited Iran?
I mean, this was Putin's, I think, 4th or 5th visit, but I don't remember when was that last time. One of the times that Putin visited Iran, he gave Khamenei an old historic Quran. Like, there was big as a gift. Yeah.
Wow.
Wait, actually, let me see. Putin Quran. Yeah, here. Let me show you this. So this was the gift when Putin came to Iran. Yeah.
Ooh.
Look at them. Putin got Khamenei a Quran. It was like...
It's big.
Yeah, it's big. It's very old historic Quran.
Wow.
This was his gift to Khamenei.
Interesting.
Oh, like, look at this. It was in this box.
Ooh.
Yeah, like... Anyways.
Ooh, you should put the link for the members in the community tab.
I did.
Oh, okay.
Can you spend time with them while I go in the washroom? And then by the time I come back, if there are any members, there's a YouTube members, there's a link in the community tab for YouTube members if they want to come talk to me live on air. I'm just going to give everybody like 5 minutes to see if anybody wants to come up. But then after that, I'm going to leave if nobody comes up. Again, so this is only available to YouTube members. YouTube members can see this in Atheist Republic YouTube channel's community tab. All right,
and if you're not a member, you can become one by hitting the big blue join button right next to subscribe and come up and join us right now.
All right. Okay, I'll be right back.
We have Atheist Republic Arabic commenting, hello, how are you? Guys, if you are Arabic speaking, please make sure to check out our Arabic language channel. They have a lot of really good content over there, a lot of interviews with Arabic speaking activists, atheist activists, LGBT activists. It's really important work over there to get out the message to the Arabic speaking community. So yes, rainbows and love. We love and appreciate what you do, Dolly, on the Arabic channel. Music Guy is saying, I wonder if that Quran was seized during the Stalin era. This is a good question. Let's do a quick Google. Let's see. Putin, Khamenei, Quran. Where did it come from?
Russia has its own history of Muslims, so
yes. Just check out Dagestan. They are real serious about it. And well, Chechnya, obviously. Let's see. A Quran copy with its own history receives an ancient manuscript of the Quran. It may not be the one of the few copies made of the original edition of the Muslim Holy Book, which was made during the 7th century.
Okay, yeah. So there are some accusations that like, oh, this was supposed to be the original copy of like this ancient or like this very old Quran. But then people are like, actually, there were not some. They're like, actually, this was just a copy of the original, and what you give Khamenei is not as valuable as you should. Like, so I don't like. Some people are like laughing at this gift, like this is just a copy. That's not the real thing. So I don't know how much that how true that is. I don't really care.
I'll just hang out with you if we wait for some members. PK is saying it's frustrating the amount we spend on military because of egos of the people in power. Imagine if we could spend that same amount on science, space exploration, and healthcare. I don't think it's purely about people's egos. I think that's way too simplistic. I don't think.
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, you need stability, and for it's not just about ego; it's about providing stability. Yeah. And okay, here's the thing: in order for you to have science, space exploration, and healthcare, you need a stable economy. Okay, you need for people to be able to feel secure, to be able to do trade, for trade routes to be secured, for there to be enough political stability where the rule of law is protected, and a state, the entire an economy that could afford spending a lot of money on science, space exploration, and healthcare requires a stable framework where people have enough trust that the political system will stay stable and the rule of law will be enforced, and trade routes are secured. And for all of that, you need strong military.
I agree. Oxymoron is saying that he will come up to speak as a member. Yeah, I think like people really take for granted the security and like defensive apparatus involved in maintaining trade routes, and take for granted how important that is to get what we need to live our life in the modernized civilization that we have today. Well, yeah, I mean, at least in some countries.
I mean, looking at Putin attacking Ukraine, and you have to realize how important it is for Western powers to have more military, like like for example, Germany's increased spending on military is something that we should all be welcoming, right? And we're lucky that United States has enough military resources to be able to make
to pick up the
that
slack for everyone else.
yeah. Like, so that's important. Also, I think what you should be more concerned about is what kind of military and what kind of spending is happening, right? Like there are spendings that happens that increases conflicts, and there are spending that happens that reduces conflict, right? One thing that you should be in favor of is if anybody's interested in less nuclear weapons in the hands of more countries, right? You should be interested in NATO's expansion, or
Mm-hmm.
or even agreements or unions, military unions similar to NATO happening between more countries, right? Where they have something similar to the Article 5, right? So just having a few nukes would be good enough to cover all these countries. Like instead of every country deciding like, okay, we need nukes as well, if they're like, okay, we could just join NATO and therefore we don't need nukes, that's a great motivation. So having yeah, that's the whole idea of having joining NATO is like that's a better alternative to having nukes. So it reduces the need for nukes, right? So that's important. So, but for NATO to be worth joining, they need to be. Every country needs to contribute their fair share of spending when it comes to military expenditure, right? For NATO to be strong enough for you to be like, okay, this is enough of a deterrent for anybody attacking us, so we don't need nukes, right? So just look at it from that perspective. So stronger NATO means less nukes, and stronger NATO requires more spending on military by each member country.
That's a good point. Have there been other like big stories that you've been following recently? I've been
Oh,
following a
so
lot of stuff in Iran, but like we're going to talk about what I was thinking of on the news this week. Which reminds me, guys, make sure to tune into the news in 3 days because we have a lot we're getting into. It's
yeah.
going to be good.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've been following Iran news a lot, so there's that. I have so much to say. I don't know which one.
Like what?
Well, we done Iran so much. Let's do
Oh,
one.
true, true, true.
Let's do India. Harshal is saying, "What do you think about future of Indian democracy?" I am actually very optimistic about future of Indian democracy because of the change and attitudes when it comes to the younger demographic, right? So I am very pessimistic about the future of Indian democracy short term, but very optimistic about it long term. So short term things seem to be going in the wrong direction, but longer term, I think things will eventually, eventually when these politicians give way to the new generation and the voter base changes slowly, this kind of voter base dies off and gives room to the younger generation. I think things will slowly move in a better direction.
It's not purely about the demographics, though. Like, I'm worried about the health of the institutions of democracy. All the different branches of government that come together to give life to the democracy have been hollowed out. And so they're still there, but like it's shaky.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to break to the point where it can't be fixed. So I think a new voter base would be able to solve it. Anyways,
I'm going to head out because I'm not feeling very well, but
okay.
Thank you for a good Q&A, everyone. And make sure to tune into the news in 3 days, which will be a lot of fun. And please like and subscribe, and I will see you then.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Susan. All right. Hi, Oxymoron.
Hi, Armin.
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So, do you want to do that, complete that RAM thing? I wanted to contextualize the RAM.
Okay, go. Give. What are we talking about again? We're talking about Ram.
Uh,
Ram.
yeah. So you were
Okay.
arguing that Ram cares more about reputation than he cares about his wife, which is true to some extent, but then it's very contextualized.
Okay, so for people who don't know what we're talking about one of the Hindus' gods, and based on what we read in Ramayana, I was criticizing this god for caring more about his reputation than the love of his life. So he was basically abandoning the love of his life because of the way it made him look, because she was kidnapped by a demon, and even though it wasn't really her fault, people were talking that maybe she had a relationship with him, or the mere fact that she was with him was like enough to raise suspicion. And Rama, in an act of cowardice, and an act of like pure selfishness, um, told everybody that I didn't even come as, like, he killed the demon and saved her, but he said that, like, you're not good for me. People are talking, and I saved you just because that was the manly, honorable thing to do. I didn't save you because you are obviously tainted now with suspicion. And she basically did trial by fire. So she set herself on fire just to prove that she's pure and that she didn't do anything with the demon. And even though the gods and Rama agreed that that shows that she's pure, she ended up kicking her out and abandoning her anyways, because he considered people are still talking anyways, right? And during the entire we had a live stream about this, and during the entire session we were reading about the fact that he was clear about, this is about me being a man, showing that I'm manly, doing the honorable thing. Everybody could witness that I did the right thing, and I'm also going to make sure that everybody witness I'm doing the right thing by kicking you out of my kingdom and like letting you off into the forest. Even though she was pregnant with his babies, wasn't she? Like, she, at that point, right? She had 2 kids with him.
Yeah, afterwards.
So yeah, afterwards. So I mean, anybody in their right mind seeing this would be on the side of Sita, on her side. I think Rama was an a-hole, and somebody that was. This is like obviously an immoral act, but again, the Rama is like supposed to be a god in Hindus that people look up to as um, as a role model, as somebody who's very good. In fact, we have a lot of people like Hindu, like we have like people in the live chat saying proud to be Hindu, and they come here with their supposedly saffron color flag, but this one looks red. But I'm assuming there's no
That
saffron
looks red.
color flag. Yeah, but then like, say, for example, you see Jai Shri Ram, like it's kind of the Allahu Akbar version of Hinduism, which means glory to be Ram, right? Glory to Ram, right? That's a good translation. So you can see the Ram is like somebody, a god that is considered to be pure and good and cherished. Yet this was this was his story. This is what his and so what's your response to that?
So I think last time around we talked about how she had to do walk of shame and how people were nosy, doubting her character.
Yeah,
Then we,
people were
yeah,
doubting.
then we were going to talk about. So do you think it's fair for her to do walk of shame whole her life because people were doubting her character?
Okay, so you're saying that Ram did her a favor, right? You're saying Ram did her a favor because if she had stayed, she would have been forced to do a walk of shame her entire life, and by Ram kicking her out, she's now at peace.
Yeah.
Okay, that was not mentioned in the story. You're adding stuff to the story. This is your interpretation.
Yeah. Okay.
The
Okay.
story
I'll
makes
put
it clear.
argument.
The story makes it clear that Ram is saying that I'm doing this. Like, she was obviously very heartbroken and distressed and not happy with this decision. They were in love. He was her entire life, and the story makes it clear that Ram is saying clearly why I'm doing this is because of my reputation. It wasn't for her. He made it very clear in the story that you are not for me anymore. You could go have, and he even gives him a list of men that she could be with, but not me, right? That's what he said. Like, I'm too honorable for you to be with me. So in order for you to save Ram from this judgment, you're adding stuff to the story that is not in the story, and you're making it seem like it's obvious. It's an obvious
let me ask
conclusion
you.
that we should be taking.
So, people were doubting character of Johnny Depp before Amber Heard situation folded out. Do you think it would be fine for his career that he did not go for if he believed that he didn't establish his character? Would it be better for him, or would it be better if he became clean? He came clean.
He came to her. Are you suggesting that for his kingdom, people need to look highly upon him, and that's why it was important for him, for the sake of his kingdom, for him to do such a thing, to show that he has a.
Yeah, because I think there was conversation with this atheist. So Ram basically is idol that upholds dharma. So basically, everything he has to do has to be as per dharma. So, do you think
but that's our problem. Yeah, go on.
Do you think it would be better for Johnny Depp to clear his name or not?
Okay, the problem we have is, okay, so let me agree with you, okay? Maybe it was better for him that he had to clear his name so that people do not speak behind his back, okay? But our problem with scripture like this is that it's confirming the fact, like this is like not a good thing. The fact that people judge a woman and you associating with a woman based on purity culture, based on modesty culture, right? We think that this is bad, okay? And this scripture confirms that you have to submit to such standards. So even if you agree that maybe for Ram, this was the right decision to make politically, okay, because people would be questioning his moral character if he was with a woman that has slept with another man. The point of religion is, we are told that the point of religion is to set higher moral standards, right? But what this scripture is doing is confirming and giving into and accepting lower moral standards, okay? If religion was actually doing what people pretend that it's supposed to do, is to take these standards that are not good, break them, and introduce better, supposedly divine standards that are better than man-made ones, right? But it's not doing that. It's confirming the horrible standards that humans have, and it's submitting to them. And it's not only submitting to them, it's putting it in a form of scripture, which makes it, as the problem with scripture is that it makes it harder for people to tackle, because it basically makes it sticky. It's harder for when these inferior moral standards come in the form of religion, they're harder to progress out of. However, to be fair to Hinduism, scripture in Hinduism doesn't hold society back as much as like Christianity and Islam can, right? Because less people that are Hindu take their scripture as seriously. You know what I mean? But I was just judging the scripture. I wasn't judging Hindus. Like, it seemed like the Quran and the Bible are more capable of holding back moral standards, progressing out of, medieval or ancient standards. Hinduism, other than the caste system, Hinduism doesn't seem to have that much moral standards from within the scripture that a lot of people are citing the scripture as a way to maintain these inferior moral standards. They're more capable of ignoring scripture. But yeah.
Do you think husband and wife have a special relationship that gives them sense of entitlement over each other compared to other people. So like my father could abuse me a little bit or scold me, but if someone else does it, it would be a little weird.
Your father could scold you how?
For doing something wrong, like establishing moral values, like he caught me stealing or stuff.
Okay, yes, but this is not about that. This is your father. Okay, so for example, this would be your father scolding you for, I don't know, like something that should not be bad. Like for example, for having a girlfriend, right? And be like, oh, you should not have a girlfriend. This is haram, for example. Okay, and also doing that to you publicly and shaming you publicly for it, right? So this would be an endorsement of purity culture or modesty culture. So it's not. I'm not questioning your father's. So you're saying that because I think you were suggesting because Ram is her husband, right?
Yeah.
He was in a position like he had the right to treat her like that because he was in a position to treat her like that, right? First of all, I don't know. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about what was she being judged.
I will put that in context. So, do you think that fishermen would have the Ramayana would have the Sita when Ram was using harsh word? Do you think if fisherman was using similar words, it would be possible to get such harsh response from Sita because she's a queen?
Okay, I'm not judging the way I'm judging what she was being judged on. She was judged for being kidnapped by a man against her will. Okay, so I'm not talking about what
Yeah, but people
position.
don't know that, right?
Yeah, but okay, but Ram had the opportunity here to introduce a new moral standard. Okay, people could have been talking about, oh my God, she was with this other man, and okay, that's so shameful, and how could Ram be with such a woman like that? This was Ram had an opportunity, like to have backbone and be like, screw you guys, I'm telling you that your way of looking at things is wrong. Okay, I love her, and this is the standard. In his position, his responsibility to his people was not to be like, oh, let me like look good so that they accept me, is to show them the right path, right? Like, for example, like if
Do you
you
think
look
people
at,
would have believed it? Do you think people would have believed him?
he's a goddamn god.
But they
The
were
other god,
already questioning him. Even if when he established the fire trial, people were still questioning him,
well,
his character.
okay. So again, first of all, you agree that this is none of this happened, right? This is fantasy. I don't think
Yeah,
you believe in these
yeah.
stories. Okay. So given that none of this happened, it's irrelevant for us to say like would have these people believed them. The point is you have an epic, okay, that is meant for it to be used as a guide, like because this is not just a story for entertainment. It's obviously a story that is trying to set moral standards, right? And you had the opportunity to tell people that this is wrong, that you should not abandon people who you love and who support, who loved you back and supported you back for your reputation. Like you're talking about consequences, like, oh, but if he did that, they wouldn't have believed that. This is fantasy. You're talking about consequences that did not exist because these people didn't exist. Okay, you
Yeah,
have a
but the
text,
point is to
you have a white canvas
myths are
that you can
basically
write
reality.
stories that encourage better moral standards, and this scripture does the opposite.
I think the scripture is inherently little casteist. So basically, he was basically putting his character as king above his personal life. Do you think it's a good idea? Real life or otherwise?
Okay,
Like
okay.
I
I
pointed in
think
the Dark Knight thing.
I think if the message was supposed to be, I don't want to do this, but in life we have to make decisions for the greater good against our own interests, okay, if you think that was the message of the scripture, it wasn't communicated that way. You have to do, you have to understand that people reading the story, that's not what the interpretation, that's not the easiest interpretation that you get out of the text, okay? The easiest interpretation that you get out of the text is that he did that for his self-interest because he was more concerned about his manlyhood and his reputation than the love of his life, okay? So this is the same criticism.
There
I
are
have.
multiple
This is the same
versions of Ramayana.
these are the same criticism I have for the Quran. Like people are like, oh, these Quranic verses is not actually telling you to go kill the unbelievers. It's actually if you actually look at it this way and that way and that way, it means this. I'm like, okay, but the text makes it seem like that it's saying that people should be killed for being unbelievers. That's what it sounds like. That's what people have been interpreting it for like hundreds of years. Right, and I could say the same thing about the Ramayana.
Okay,
you could be like, "Oh no, this is yeah." Go on.
So the scripture is mythical, but it's trying to make a point that he's king before he's a husband. So do you think there was this case of 2002?
In the text, he says, he makes it very clear what this is about. If you wanted people to come out, like we have a lot of other stories that are written, ancient stories that are written that is giving you the moral message that you're saying, but it's more obvious, it's clear that the person is doing this not because they think this is the moral thing to do, but because they're doing a consequentialist analysis and they're weighing the good and bad and like, okay, this is bad, but I have to do this because these people be crazy and I can't make the easy decision. I have to make the decision that is the best thing for the greatest number of people. Okay, there are stories written like that, but when you read it, people will understand that that's what's happening. But again, what's happening in Ramayana is not what you're saying. It's almost obvious that that's not the calculation that Ram is making there. You're just adding stuff to the text.
No. So do you think that Sita would have criticized? Sita basically went through the fire test twice. Do you think that if Sita basically the last time around, people Marxists called it feminist Sita? I think character change of Sita when she became a feminist, but I don't think that way. But do you think that there's criticism in text, so people knew, so the writer knew that the complexity? So am I adding complexity to that, or is the writer adding complexity to it? Because the criticism of Ram through eyes of Sita and criticism of people through eyes of Sita is already told in the scripture.
I don't understand the question. I just think like Ram clearly communicated what his priorities were, and they were not good ones.
Yeah, but Sita basically challenged both. The last time around, Sita challenged the views of people and views of Ram.
Okay.
So do you think that
let me actually make your point. Let me actually make
aware of this?
No, the writer was aware, but the writer didn't agree with them. Okay, so actually, let me make your point. It wasn't just Sita that challenged Ram. Other gods, many other gods showed up, and they were also telling Ram, "What are you doing? This is the love of your life. Like, she's pure. Don't treat her like that." Also, the argument was not that a modesty culture is wrong. The argument was like, "Oh no, she didn't sleep with him." Okay. This is what the other gods were like. This is her argument, and this is the other gods' argument. Okay, that as if he had slept with her, that all of this would have been justified, even though she was kidnapped against her will. So the argument was not like, don't mistreat her like this. The argument was like, don't mistreat her like this because he didn't sleep with her. Okay, so that's already problematic. But the issue is that the conclusion of the story
just.
No, the conclusion was like all of these complaints.
Do you think it was just? Do you think it was just for Ram to expect if her character was shady? Would it make sense for Ram to accept her because she is queen?
Not because she's queen, because it's a crappy, like it had nothing to, like you keep talking about her status. I'm saying that this was a wrong thing to do regardless of her status. I also want to mention that all of the complaints were brought about because it seemed like the writers or whoever is responsible for these stories understood that what people, and actually this shows to me that that people back then also understood that this is wrong. Okay, because you're making it seem like, oh, the people would have seen Rom as doing the wrong thing if she went back to her. Okay, but the people in the story are fiction. The people who read the story, they were real. Okay, the people who these stories were written for are real people, and the fact that the authors put their counter arguments into the mouths of Sita and into the mouths of other gods shows that those people back then were real, that opposed Ram's position, that would have opposed Ram's position. So you're like, oh, these people, they will all think he's lying, she's lying, and wouldn't have believed her. I'm saying that Sita's complaints and other gods' complaints was a reflection of my position back then, or because my position must have existed for the authors to have felt a need to respond to. Do you know what I mean? And so the response was there, and people were like, hey, look, Armin, no, this story is not as bad as you think it is, because Sita's complaints are there and other gods' complaints are there, but they were shut down. The supremacy of Ram was understood, like after they all came and made their cases, and even after trial by fire cleared Sita's name by all their gods, Agni, eventually Ram was understood like, listen, everybody, Ram is the superior god. Ram is everything. Okay, and this is a Vaishnavite text, right? This is a Vaishnavite
Okay,
text.
no, you are getting it wrong.
No.
So basically, when the gods were
let me
coming,
make my point. I haven't finished my point yet. This is a Vaishnavite text, right?
yeah.
Okay, so Ram being an avatar of Vishnu, this is like is considered to be like he's supposed to be the supreme god, right? So everybody's positions eventually was shut down in favor of Ram eventually deciding to kick Sita out anyways. So the conclusion is clear. All the counter arguments are not good enough. But go on.
Okay, so it's the second time the Ram is mentioned as Vishnu. So in both times, the Ram denies that he is Vishnu in the text, because the first time he is mentioned as Vishnu when he kills Ravan, the first time, because the wife of Ravan claims that only Vishnu could kill Ravan. The second time it's mentioned is this episode of 5. So basically, it was to establish the character of Sita, because gods are chased, but gods don't lie. So the gods themselves are witness that you are going wrong. So
That
Ram
doesn't deny anything. That doesn't contradict anything I'm saying. Ram denied that he's Vishnu, but he is Vishnu.
But you said the Ram is God. Ram is God, so he wasn't acting like a god at that point of time. He wasn't Vishnu. He
I
was
know,
human.
but he was okay. But Ram is an avatar of Vishnu.
Yeah, but then they just they were trying to establish that the Sita is pure. That was the point, because they would have started with the text would have started with Ram is avatar of Vishnu. It is
this
only
confirms everything.
established two
Okay,
times.
I know this confirms everything I'm saying. Okay, yeah, Sita was pure. Okay, but even when her purity was proven, first of all, the fact that she had to prove her purity is already problematic, because this is promoting purity culture and marriage culture, right? But second of all, even with her purity confirmed, she was still kicked out because people's opinions apparently matters more than the actual truth. This is a horrible teaching.
But isn't it true?
And also, Susanna is also making a point, like, even if Ram's saying that he is not God, the reader understands that this Ram is an avatar of Vishnu, and he is God to the reader. The reader sees him in that position. And also, Vishnu, in the text itself, it is confirmed to Ram, like he's denying that he's God, but he's come and said, like, hey, no, your eyes are entire galaxies, your mouth is I don't know what. Like he's told, like he is told by God that he is the most superior God in the story. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So do you think that they don't mention Ram as God before. What might be the reason? It is only the two moments which where Ram is mentioned as Vishnu. Up till the whole story, the Ram isn't mentioned as Vishnu. So the first time readers wouldn't really know the Ram is God of
Yeah.
Vishnu. Ram is Vishnu. Do you think why would they do that? Do you think?
First of all, the readers are not reading this in a vacuum. This is set in a place. This is like these are stories that people knew as part of their tradition, and now it's being canonized into a book. Okay, so people know who Ram is. Okay, but also this is being built up to eventual understanding who has the most superior answer is the person who has the most superior position, right? So it starts off by making it seem like other people's positions could be valid, but it ends up by Ram making the final decision to kick out Sita and confirming that he is the most superior god. So it builds up to that eventuality with the proper conclusion being communicated to the reader.
Okay. So do you think that? I forgot the point. Do you think so? Ram, before he was talking to this atheist called Jabali. So the Jabali was saying that you don't really need to keep the promise of your father because by utilitarian calculation, you don't have to go to forest and keep the vow
Yeah,
of your father.
this is a battle between, yeah, this is, by the way, I don't think like yeah, exactly, I don't think what you're saying is the book is not trying to portray a utilitarian calculations of morality. The book is trying to portray staying true to dharma. Okay,
Yeah.
just accepting dharma, which is a form of, I think, virtue ethics, right? So it's basically saying that these are the things that I need to do, and it's right because it's just written that it's right, regardless of the consequences. That's the morality that Ramayana is like, and also following orders, following what is the right path that is described by the Vedas and by the ancient scripture. The path that the universe has determined for you is the correct path. You are not in a position to judge. You are not, we are not, even gods are not in a position to judge what has the best outcome. The right path has been painted for you, it has been described to you, and your role is to just follow. Okay, your role is, and basically this is a very fascistic ideology. Okay, the only thing that makes it not fascist is that dharma is like ingrained in the universe rather than the person giving you orders. Okay, but if you could actually see this dharma philosophy as somebody that giving you order, you could see that it's basically the same philosophy as just following orders without questioning them, without regardless of the consequences. That's what that's what the Ramayana is teaching you. And also that's what the Gita,
Okay.
the Bhagavad Gita is teaching you as well. The whole philosophy of following dharma is just follow orders regardless of the consequences.
Okay. So there was this atheist who he was having kind of conversation with. So he said, "You don't have to keep the vow of your father, and you can live a great life as a king. You don't have to go to forest." So do you think that if he would have, no, Ram argues that it would lead to he's kind of icon for people. So if he abandons his father's vow, people would look upon him as
I don't
someone
know, but
as a
I'm
ruler.
not talking. I'm not talking about him abandoning his position as a ruler. Okay, I was just judging the way he treated Sita. That's all I'm doing right now.
So
But if you want to talk about other parts of the text, I could go read them and come. We could
yeah,
analyze
but
it.
the whole text is about the dharma and consequences. So he was talking about the
I know.
consequences. If
I,
he
no, it's not
doesn't,
talking. No. Sorry, talking about dharma and not the consequences.
no, if he doesn't, no, he actually gives the argument to this
That's your.
atheist
Yeah. Okay.
that if he doesn't set up a moral standard, he won't be able to rule the people. If he
Yeah.
doesn't set
Okay.
high moral
Okay.
standard,
True.
at least
The
optics
only
of horror.
No. See, the only consequence that matters within the Dharma ethical philosophy is the consequence of you losing your position because you didn't do the follow Dharma. Okay, so you can't act like this is a purely consequentialist attitude towards moral philosophy. Okay,
But he did
just
make that argument.
no,
In
because
text.
only one consequence because within
Consequences.
this, there's only one consequence that matters when it comes to dharma. Okay, you have your position in society. Okay, your caste and your role is is kind of written in within the fabric of the universe. You just discover what your role is and you follow it. And if you don't follow it, you will lose the position. You will fall out of the position that you're supposed to be holding. Okay, that's the consequence.
So
That is the
is
only
it bad
consequence.
idea?
Yeah, it's a bad idea because other
So
consequences
let's
should
come back to Ram. So would Ram be in position to judge people if if people are judging him, if they don't put him at high moral standard? Would he be able to
well,
rule them?
no,
So
you get it. The problem is
if
that people
Ram
are
doesn't uphold the promise, then people won't uphold
you don't
promises
understand
made
what I'm
too.
saying.
The system will fall.
No, the system. You don't understand what I'm saying. The problem is that they are using a wrong standard to judge him. You're saying that if he did the wrong thing, people would have not see him as worthy of the position that he's in, and they would have judged him negatively. Okay. The problem is that the book is portraying the people as with a standard that is wrong. Okay. And the
Yeah,
book and these
so
hold
that's not
on,
wrong
let me finish.
because
Let me
people
finish.
generally have wrong
Let me finish.
standards.
Let me finish. Okay. And given that these people are not real because this is fiction, okay, Ram was in a position to challenge that. And also, the people's standards were not this, because Sita spoke and the other gods spoke, and that which shows that this book was written in an environment where the counter arguments existed. So this was not the only position that people have had, okay? Because the counter arguments had to be
Basically the author
addressed.
was writing the book.
Oh yeah,
So Ramana didn't
I know,
happen.
but it was
Author,
just
both
the author
positions
was
were made by author only.
yeah, but there were enough.
Both positions.
There were people that had the counter narrative, so he could have you cannot treat society as back then as if they all had the same position, and therefore Ram had no chance to no choice but to submit to them. Okay, and again, we're going in circles because you keep saying that people would have put him away as a ruler if he had not submitted to their judgment, and that was not communicated in the book. You're just adding to the text. This is not communicated in the book that's what the
I think it has
consequences
been
were.
communicated because
That was
there are
communicated
multiple
in another
versions of
story.
Ramayana.
Yeah, that was not not in this story. That him not taking position. If in another part of the text he was like wondering whether he should take the position or not take the position, that is not suggesting that if he had supported Sita and accepted her back, his position would have been challenged. Nowhere in the book it communicates that with you. That Ram's position
Yeah,
would
it
have been
does. So I'm just pointing out at a Jabali, the atheist argument, where he made all those arguments. So the character of Rama has always been consistent, right? That way. He only faces
that
moral
was another
dilemmas.
issue. The fact that his position was being challenged or not was not the same as the part of the story where he was judged, where he decided to abandon Sita. Anyways, let's let everybody else judge this, because let me actually read some of the comments. Harvey is saying, why do you only target only Hindus by far the community with the least instance of religious violence? Okay, you're insane or ignorant. Like I spent a lifetime of criticizing Christianity and Islam. So yeah, just I don't know what you're talking about. PK saying, I used to shut on Ram all the time in front of my aunt and uncles while they used to pray in the morning or on festivals. I was a kid back then, didn't realize I was being a jerk. Okay. Hold on. PK saying, I think most sane people know that most of these stories are man-made, though they still believe in the general concept of Hinduism like karma, rebirth, etc. Yeah, I agree with that. I think even most Hindus think this. I mean, what do you think, Oxymoron? Do you think most Hindus believe that these stories are real or they're made up? Most Hindus.
So after 14th century, people started believing them because then Islam was dominant religion. Before that, people took it as back. Nobody really questioned if Ram really existed. That arguments don't exist. It was generally the Christianity and Islam are historical texts, little bit. So they question if your God is real. So that kind of question didn't exist in India. Even Charvakas, when they said they didn't really deny God, they said that the king is the God, and that kind of arguments were put by them. So people didn't see God the same way after 14th century, like they said viewed before.
So
Even
you're
Greek
saying they
texts, I
didn't
don't
even
think.
consider? Are you saying you didn't even consider it, even question whether it's real or not? Is that what you're saying?
No, you don't get that argument if Ram is real or not. Never. I think it was just
Okay, but
Muslims who started first questioning if Ram is real, if flying monkey is real. So
I don't
those
know because
arguments don't exist.
the Mahabharata and the Ramayana are referred to as itihasa itihasa, right? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, itihasa means history, right?
yeah. It means history, but India has different way of
Okay, itihasa
charting history than.
no, but okay, so itihasa actually means something else. Like literally, it means to traditional accounts of past events. Okay, so the fact that the Ramayana and Mahabharata are referred to as the traditional accounts of past events, to me suggests that people believe that these things actually happened. No, am I wrong?
But then people would be questioning which Ram is real because there were multiple Ramayanas and people were aware of them. That there's Jain Ramayana where Ram doesn't kill anyone, Buddhist Ramayana where Ram and Sita are sisters. There's tribal Ramayana where they question this man who was killed by Rama because he was trying to take over heavens. There are
Uh,
multiple versions of Ramayanas, and never people really question that this Ramayana is real or that Ramayana is real. And India has this different way of looking at history. They always mythologize history. Even Muslims said the Muslim historians who the Muslim court historians who were writing, they said that the Brahmins they
Okay, one
mythologize
second, Eben
everything.
Kaim. One second, Eben Kaim. I posted a link. Eben Kaim is wondering because I was removing the link because I didn't know if I could, if we're gonna have time to continue. But Eben Kaim was asking for the link to come up. It's back up there, Eben Kaim. If you wanna join. Okay,
Can we do
go on.
Kashmir thing?
Yeah, just let me read the last comments about this. Susanna saying, "What if Ram was progressive, a progressive icon? I was pro open marriage." Yeah. I mean, usually you see like, I mean that's funny, but usually, I mean, Krishna had a whole bunch of women who he had sex with at the same time, but usually you see like prophets and godlike figures to come and introduce new norms, right? Like Jesus came and like, hey, yeah, everybody's wrong, and he fundamentally and radically introduced new standards. Muhammad came and he introduced new norms, and he was like fundamentally introduced new standards by suggesting that I don't know, people should be worshiping other gods. Moses did the same thing. Moses was like, oh yeah, let my people go. Noah basically was taking part in committing mass genocide on the whole planet. So it's just like, and religion claims like, oh yeah, everyone's wrong, and we come and introduce better standards, right? And so it's amazing that people are going to Rome, but oh, Rome, he had no choice. We have no choice. He just had to accept people's judgment, and like, oh, people were forcing him, and if he didn't do it, he wouldn't be in power anymore. Like grow a pair of balls. Like what the hell? Like challenge society. Like you, what the
Yeah,
hell
but
is
it leads to
this?
degeneracy in society if you don't set higher moral standards.
I don't think
At
so.
least optics of higher moral standards.
I
About
think that's just your addition to the story.
okay,
PT thinks she was
about Krishna and Ram.
yeah. Well, let's move to
Oh, so
Kashmir. Well,
people didn't know she was kidnapped. only people who knew she was kidnapped was Ram, Lakshman, and Jatayu. People did know
No,
she
but
was
she said,
kidnapped.
but she said to everybody right there that I was kidnapped.
But people didn't believe her.
Yeah,
So it
PK
was
is saying
putting Ram into moral dilemma.
PK is saying irrespective of whether she had sex or not, she was kidnapped, so she had zero fault.
Was she
Anyways, we should
kidnapped?
move on.
People were questioning that.
Okay. Let's move to Kashmir because Ibn Qayyim is here as well. Ibn Qayyim, hi.
Hello, Armin. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, no, busy. That's why I haven't been online for the past couple of weeks. Just been working and working. But yeah, I thought I've got a few minutes. I thought I'd jump on. I was just wondering, did you see Harris's response to my accusations, Harris and Nuria's?
No, I can watch it.
Oh, we don't have to watch it now, but you can watch it at a later time. But it's amazing, actually. They dedicated 30 minutes to my original accusations, which, considering I'm a random person online who doesn't reveal their identity, is I'm kind of flattered, to be honest, Armin, that they dedicated so much time to me specifically. And what astonishes me is
that's not a very fair characterization of what's happening. They're taking it like you're trying. Are you trying to make fun of the fact that they took you seriously?
No. What I'm saying is I'm flattered by the fact that they are responding to me, because you could get like maybe 10 or 15 accusations against you, but the fact that they're taking this seriously and responding, I think it indicates that there might be some truth behind what I'm saying.
Wow, you're being so uncharitable. Wouldn't you be like? Wouldn't you? Why can't you see that as a positive? That they are.
I do see it as a positive.
No, you're
I'm
saying
not seeing
it
as
as
a
negative.
negative.
Like maybe
I'm glad.
It's true. No, like they're taking criticism seriously and they're responding to it. So that's a good thing.
Well, I don't think they took the criticism very seriously. I think the way they responded by blatantly lying to their audience, I think, and what I'll do is, I won't discuss this because you haven't seen the video, but what I'll do is within the course of the next 7 days or so, I'll email you the information regarding the things they've discussed and the counterpoints, etc. But I'll email you regarding that, and then we can discuss it in due course.
Okay? Is the video called "An Ex-Muslim Atheist Attacks Nuria and Harris"?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, I'll watch it later. Yeah.
Just watch it later, and then I'll send you an email in response to those, into that response. Okay. But anyway, how are you? We've had a heat wave in the UK. I don't know if you're aware.
Yeah, everyone's aware.
A couple of days ago, we reached 40 degrees centigrade. The previous record in the UK was temperature record was 38.1 or something degrees centigrade. So we beat it by 2 degrees. Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I've never felt anything like. I've never been out of the country before, so it was the first time I've experienced anything like that. So it was quite exceptional, to say the least.
You need to take global warming a little more seriously, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think this is the fact that we're seeing records being broken more and more often in the UK, because generally we'd see a heat wave every, say, 50, 60, 70 years. We'd see a big heat wave in the UK. Now we're seeing it every 3, 4, 5 years. So it's kind of an indication that global warming does need to be taken more seriously, and hopefully the politicians will start doing something about it. I mean, but unless India and China, which have significant populations, unless they do something about the issue, then it's not really going to be resolved at the end of the day. There's only so much a country like the UK, which is so small in terms of its population size, etc., can do in terms of fixing global warming. It has to be a global thing.
All right, so let's talk. Yeah, I agree. But first of all, I agree, but I don't like it when people just don't do their share because, like, oh, well, China is not doing their share, so why should we, right? Like, it shouldn't be used as an excuse for people not to do their.
No, I'm not using it as an excuse. So what I'm saying is that in order to fix the issue, China and India have to be involved, right?
Yeah, but we also shouldn't be waiting for them to get involved before everybody else does it. Like, if they don't get involved,
and I never said that, but
yeah. I know. I know you didn't say that. I just wanted to make sure that people are not coming away with that conclusion. Anyway, Oxymora wanted to talk about Kashmir, so it's a good thing that you're here.
Yeah. Do you have arguments for Kashmir? Do you have arguments for Kashmir that there should be plebiscite? Like, so
There should be what?
Last time
Sorry,
I
could you
think
repeat that?
Satya, yeah, should there be plebiscite or shouldn't there be plebiscite?
Should there? Sorry, my audio isn't very good. What should there be? What? Sorry.
Should there be referendum in Kashmir? What are your
Referendum.
For
arguments
independence.
for
God.
referendum?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you
For
think
independence. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No,
Absolutely.
just
Why
referendum.
not? Why not?
Yeah, I think so too. I think there should be a referendum.
But on what grounds should there be a referendum?
On the grounds. What do you mean underground? On the
Is
grounds that
is
it's
there
like. Yeah.
do you have any point why should there be referendum in Kashmir?
Because there's a demand for people to
Yeah.
want independence from the greater India. And look at what's happening right now in Kashmir. You're seeing the suppression of the people. You're seeing movies being made.
If people,
Yeah.
so if
It just seems
people,
like it just seems to be the best solution to the current situation. Like,
but
no,
what
it's just-
precedent does it set? Tomorrow, if Texas decides that it wants to get freedom, should it be allowed to? Like Satya pointed out.
Well, I think the
yeah,
Kashmir
I mean,
issue.
it shouldn't be.
Go on, Armin.
It shouldn't just be allowed to, but a referendum should be on the books. Yeah. But go on, Ibn Qayyim. You wanted to
Like for
respond?
example, Scotland recently had a referendum with regard to
Yeah.
independence from the United Kingdom.
Quebec
and they
had a
were
referendum.
allowed. What's that?
Quebec from Canada had a referendum.
Yeah, they had a referendum. In Scotland, they voted against separating from the rest of the United Kingdom, but they were allowed to have the vote, etc. And they decided against it. The same, I think, was the case with Quebec. So with Kashmir, equally in this instance, people should be allowed to have a vote. And if they vote to choose to stay with India, so be it. If they choose to vote to separate from India, so be it.
So okay, so oxymoron, you wanted a precedent. Well, there you have it. Now, are you okay now with it?
So on what basis would the precedent be? If let's say if I want to make my independent nation of three neighboring states, so should I be allowed to cede from India?
No, because there is, first of all, in Kashmir already has a precedent of a referendum being promised to them, right? Second of all, you have to show that there is enough tensions and for this, that a referendum like this would resolve that tension. Third of all, you have to show that there's a lot of demand for such referendum by the majority of the people by a lot of the people that live in that area. Like, you can't just like have a referendum every Thursday just because you feel like it, right?
Okay, so there's Kashmir, which is 135 by 52 kilometers. It's very small area, the proper Kashmir Valley, and there's huge region which doesn't want to be with Kashmir, which is Jammu and Ladakh, because the Ladakh has significant amount of non-Muslim population, and then Jammu has a lot of Hindu population. They are
in Jammu, for example, in fact, the majority of people who live, well, not majority, but significant proportion of the people that live in Kashmir today were originally from Jammu, and they were ethnically cleansed in the 1930s. I think between 30 million and 100 million Muslims were killed in the 1940s, and then many of them had to run away and live in the Kashmir Valley as a result of being slaughtered by the Hindus at the time. It was a genocide. It was considered a genocide at the time. And
okay, there was genocide, but 30 million people didn't die. They migrated to Pakistan.
No. The deaths, if you look at the articles,
in other
it's
areas,
between 30 and 100 million deaths.
And other areas.
No, it's between 30 and 100 million deaths. It's between 30 and 100 million deaths.
Genocide.
No. There's
just
between
go to
30
Wikipedia.
No, there's between 30 and 100 million deaths. The United Nations estimates that the deaths are between 30 and 100 million
Can you bring article?
during that period.
Can you bring article?
Well, I don't have an
relative
article on me right
nations.
now, but these are the estimates. I mean, you can look them up. I can
Okay,
send you an article at a later
just
date, and then we can. Yeah.
just wiki Jammu genocide. They will say that New York Times reported that 30 million, 300 million. I think, I don't think 30 million, 300 million. It wouldn't be population of whole Jammu and Kashmir put together, 30 million that time. So the problem
No,
is,
sorry, not 30 million. Sorry,
uh,
30,000 to 100,000.
if
Sorry,
you go
did I
to
say
wiki,
30 million? I was supposed to say 30,000 to 100,000.
yeah, so it happened other way around too. It was during the partition when that happened. So it happened that time
Yeah, no,
too.
I
But
didn't
Hindus
say
were
the
cleansed
other side didn't
from
happen.
Mirpur.
No,
Yeah,
I didn't say. I didn't say. But you were saying the area of Jammu was is majority Hindu.
It
And
was
even if
majority
it was
Hindu
the
even
case
that
even back
time.
then. No, wait, hold on. You need to let me finish before you respond. Okay. So the population was about the majority of the population in Jammu may well have been Hindu, but I don't think you should, you agree with the fact that between 30,000 and 100,000 Muslims were killed, and a large proportion of the remainder moved into the Kashmir Valley as well as the Mirpur area during that period.
But Hindus were killed in cleansed from Mirpur area too. It was during
No, but I'm
partition
not.
all that happened.
No. Hold on. You're just doing whataboutism now. Listen to what I said. Between 30,000 and 100,000 Muslims were killed in the Jammu area, and a large proportion of the remaining people there moved into either the Kashmir Valley or into the Mirpur area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
this is
what do you
why the
think, India?
population of Jammu is not the population it was back then, because of this genocide against the Muslims by the Sikhs and the Hindus at the time. And that's fair enough. Listen, times have changed. People now we don't have many Muslims in Jammu anymore. However, the Kashmir people, the people of the Kashmir Valley, should have the opportunity to vote, considering obviously the historic persecution of the people in that region. They should have the ability to vote for their independence in the region. And, this is something that had been kind of promised for a long time, that the people of Kashmir were never meant to be part of India. It was only because of the Pakistan invasion of the princely state of Kashmir at the time. The government within the region at the time sought help from India, and therefore became part of India. But the people themselves always considered themselves separate. I don't think they considered themselves, they considered themselves as part of India as a whole. And I think, it's well deserved. And it's an issue that, the tensions there are building up. All you're going to see is attacks and attacks and attacks within Kashmir, because the Kashmiri people will continue to fight for their independence. So you're just going to see attacks against the police, against the, the government, the soldiers, etc., until people have the opportunity to actually, vote for their, in order for them to have a vote for their own self-determination.
Okay, so do you know Sheikh Abdullah? Did you learn about the Sheikh Abdullah, who was which was the biggest political party in Jammu and Kashmir?
No, I don't. You can tell me about Sheikh Abdullah.
Oh, so there was this king. So there was it was sort of constitutional democracy in Jammu and Kashmir. So there was this leader in Jammu and Kashmir who was very, very popular, and he wanted to go with India because it's not the king that convinced Nehru to take up Kashmir. It was the Sheikh Abdullah, who was which was the biggest political party, in Jammu and Kashmir. So it was Sheikh Abdullah that Kashmiris at that time had very popular. Lot of Kashmiris did want to go with India because their leader, which is biggest political party, wanted to. It changed, I think, in 90s. Even when Pakistan invaded the Jammu and Kashmir, they hoped there would be rebellion in Kashmir and they would cede from India. But the plan didn't go in, I think, 1965 war. So they sent a lot of tribesmen they sent a lot of tribesmen and army before the war. to cause this outrage and gain independence from India. But Kashmiri people did not respond. So the whole
Let me ask
field.
you a question, Oxymoron. The present population of Kashmir Valley in that region, would they want independence from India or not currently?
Kashmir Valley would, Jammu won't, and Ladakh won't.
Yeah, but
But
Jammu, there's Jammu and Kashmir. So the people of Kashmir we're talking about specifically. Do you
yeah,
think the
but
population of
the
Kashmir would want independence?
Kashmiris also want Kashmiris also want the Jammu region. So there's greater national, idea of Greater Kashmir. There's the idea of Greater India, and there's idea of Greater Pakistan. All demand that Kashmir.
Wait. So you're, if I'm understanding, let me know if I'm understanding this correctly. All right. So you're saying that there are certain parts of Kashmir that want independent, but part of this independence, they want to secede other parts and those parts they don't want to be. They want to remain part of India. So your issue is like, if this part goes away, they're going to take away with them parts that don't want to go away. Is that your argument?
No. Their demand is they maintain the fact that Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh are one unit. So Kashmiri nationalists want Jammu and Ladakh, which is Buddhist majority region and Hindu majority region, to be under Kashmir.
Okay, so that's what I just said. So this Jammu area, for example, you're saying they want to remain in India, and the people who want independence from Kashmir, right? They want to take the Jammu part with them as independent. Okay, so isn't that what I just said?
You did just say that.
Yeah. Okay. So what if each one of these sections has its own referendum, and only the parts, like we don't have a referendum for the entire area, we take multiple referendum, and any part that gets the vote to leave, they leave, and the parts that get to want to stay. Would that be a solution that you accept? So we don't have one referendum.
The Kashmiris, for Kashmiri nationalists,
I'm not
they think
a
that it is not viable.
Okay, I am not a Kashmiri nationalist. I'm asking you, okay? Do you think that would be a good solution? Like not having one referendum for that would be good? Okay.
Yeah, it's
what do you think?
I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Guys, we just came. Look, we just met in the middle. Okay, we came up with a compromise. Okay, so not one referendum, but multiple referendums, and the parts that want to stay with India stay with India.
Yeah, so the people who want to stay part of India, I have no issue with that. And if people want independence, I have no issue with that in this instance, with the Kashmir region. But yeah, I'm happy with that.
Guys, we solved Kashmir. We just solved the Kashmir issue. Guys, we the three of us here solved it. The solution is not one referendum, but multiple referendums. Contact somebody, contact India and Pakistan, get them on the line. We figured it out. Everything.
Okay, but
sorted.
The whole the India really
don't ruin it, Oxymoron. Don't ruin it.
No. But there's huge different questions about the idea of India, and they are put in. So the Kashmir was seeded from the king.
We just got a donation from Anonymous. I don't know who, but thank you so much. Oh, PK is here.
So,
hello, go on, Oxymoron, and then let PK speak.
Okay.
Listen, Armin, I'm gonna need to go now. I need to get to work, but I'll email you and we'll discuss further.
But
yeah?
no one wants. I think the Kashmiri nationalist, the Indian nationalist, and Pakistani nationalist. No one wants the Jammu and Kashmir to be separated. All maintain that it is one region. So
okay, just give them the option. Give them the option. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, if they're all one region, okay, if they're all together, then they should have no problem winning the referendum for all of them to secede. Okay, so tell them like, sure, you're all in it together. Then let's have a referendum and let the people decide. But the thing is that you're throwing the ball in their court. You know what I mean? Like,
so India,
if India gives every section its own referendum, okay. And the other sides are like, no, this is not what they want. Like, oh, look, they want to force people who don't want to leave India to leave India. Like, India will have the moral high ground at that point. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, so India was ready to give Kashmir Valley to Pakistan, but it didn't agree, even without a referendum.
Hold on 1 second. Apparently, Susanna is saying that we got 5 pounds, 5 euros or 5 pounds. The 5 pounds because we solved the Kashmir issue. Okay, I think we deserve more than that, guys. We solved the Kashmir issue. I think we deserve at least $100,000 or something. But what did you say? Say that again, Oxymoron. You're saying that
Oh,
India
I
already
forgot.
did what? India already
India
did
was ready to
offer.
offer Kashmir. Yeah,
Mhm.
it did back then. So India was ready to give the Muslim majority region to Kashmir, but Pakistan didn't want
Okay.
it. Pakistan didn't
Okay.
want Kashmir and Jammu at all. It wanted Hyderabad, which was Hindu majority region. So there was very different
Okay,
dynamics
well,
playing out.
okay, so we're not talking about back then. We're talking about right now. Okay, and if India does the right thing and Pakistan ruins it, then it's not India's fault. India is still doing the right thing. So, I mean, what you constantly do whataboutism. Okay, if Pakistan's wrong policies is Pakistan is for us to judge Pakistan for it. We're talking about India right now. PK, what do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I do. So hi Armin and Oxy.
Hey,
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I just wanted to say, Oxymoron, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the same solution that was like proposed in like 2001 or something by Vajpayee government? Or I think
Yeah,
Manmohan Singh?
we did it. We proposed it multiple times.
no. I thought this was original. Okay, I'm going to still take credit for it because this shows that this offer that was taken seriously, we just came up with a solution that people that were so involved in the system came up with it. So I'm still going to praise.
Yeah, like this was proposed, and then I think we got after that we had terrorist attacks in India on our parliament, and I think the plane was one of the I don't remember which plane, but one Air India plane was hijacked, and stuff like that happened, and then all of this was put on the back burner.
Okay, I think it should be
Yeah.
tried again. Kenny, another person just donated 5 euros to us.
No,
Kenny,
so
thank you. Thank you, Kenny.
so Pakistan basically doesn't want Kashmir. It wants it to remain an issue because army basically sustains on Kashmir issue with India.
Yeah, okay,
So
but
they,
that's I mean nobody here is like endorsing Pakistan's policies, right? So I don't know why you keep saying like, oh, this Pakistan didn't let it happen. Okay. And
but then how do you do a referendum without Pakistan getting involved?
no,
Unilaterally?
here's the thing. I think India has to just put this policy forward. Okay. If other
It did multiple
actors
times.
do it again, okay, like keep doing it. But I'm just saying that if other parties constantly make it not work, then that's not India's responsibility. India is like comes
but
and keeps
we have been
suggesting.
doing this for ages now. India has
Okay,
been
we'll do
doing
it again.
Yeah,
this for
I'd like
ages
to add
now.
one thing. Yeah, to
Every
be fair,
single decade.
Well, yeah. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
do it again. Well, good job, India. Well, good
to
job,
be
India.
fair to us, like we have been trying like many times to resolve it, and every time
Okay.
like one of our prime minister goes and talks, and then we get a terrorist attack or something, or some war starts. So, but now I agree that it's
Also, the Shakib who is usually against oxymoron is agreeing with oxymoron here, saying, "I can't believe I'm siding with oxymoron." Okay, so it seems like even PK and most people from India who usually are against oxymoron are agreeing with him in this case. So I'm gonna assume that this is true. Okay,
But
so
I just
let's
want to add one thing.
give credit. Let's give credit where credit is due. So this is like seems like India has been trying to get a referendum going on there, and it's been fair. Okay, so our criticism is not to India, okay, as a whole. Our criticism is to Modi. Okay, has Modi been Modi's administration? Have they put forth a referendum suggestion solution?
No, I don't think Modi wants to do it. Like,
Okay, there. So our problem
I
is
think-
our problem is not with the previous Indian administrations. Our problem right now is with Modi.
Oh, so basically, it's not going to happen. The referendum, you can push it
I'm
multiple
not
times. I think
okay, oxymoron. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that it would be an act of goodwill for Modi's administration, okay, to put forth this solution and to show once again to the world that India was on the right side and it was stopped by other actors.
didn't we do that multiple times? Basically,
I
Kashmir
said
is
the
suffers
Modi
because of it.
administration. I didn't say India. I said the Modi administration.
But there's nothing unique about Modi administration. It has been happening for now
No,
70 years now. The negotiations.
Why wouldn't you do it again? To just show it's a good signal to the world that Modi
Because
is part
whenever
of the
we do it,
solution.
there are terrorist acts, multiple bombings. Every single
Okay.
civilian government of Pakistan has tried to do this. So
Mhm.
every time we do it, there are multiple terrorist attacks on India. So it comes
Okay.
with
PK, what do
loss
you
of
think? Is
lives.
that right? Is that
Historically,
correct?
yes, but I think right
Okay.
now Pakistan is far more willing to, to to resolve the issue because they are in a very bad
Oh.
state, and they would like
Oh.
it
Oh,
to get
really?
resolved. And
Okay. Okay.
there are
Okay.
elements, like there are of course elements who don't want it to be resolved in the Pakistan army or in this whatever their
Wait.
intelligence
What?
service, ISI and all.
Why would Pakistan's current situation mean that they want the Kashmir situation to be resolved? Why?
Because they understand that they need India to for the economy. Like they want to, like the political system, they want it to be resolved so that they can start concentrating on their economy and the country and stuff like that. But the army, a major part of the ISI and the army, they don't want it to be resolved because then they will lose all the reason for, like, the army's whole existence and their, the entire budget that they, justify that we need so much money. They need to make India as this threat, and so that is why certain part of the army never wants to resolve the Kashmir issue. But now I think the army's justification now has been, like, reduced to a lot. Like their validity, their, credibility is not there anymore. People don't like them anymore, like what they had before. And the political people have a lot more power. And the current economic situation of Pakistan is quite bad, and a lot of overall situation is quite bad. And I think they'll be a lot more willing to resolve the issue than previously.
Okay, so so I was almost ready to remove the referendum option because of oxymoron of what I heard in the live chat, what I read in the live chat. But now we're putting it back on the table because oxymoron PK is saying this time is different. This time Pakistan is also interested in resolving this issue. So let's do let's push and make another push for the referendum.
And it will be in the broader interest of India too, because we
Oh, okay,
spend
bro.
billions of dollars on that area. And I don't know, like there is water. I think one area's thing is that the Indus goes through Kashmir Valley. That is a strategic importance. Other than that, we just bleeding money on, and we have like millions of kids in India who, like, in UP, other states, who really, like, they're stunted. Like one third of the population in UP, other places are like literally stunted because they don't get proper food and stuff. So we are like, it's hampering our growth. So I think, like, it's in our interest too to just resolve this part so that we can. It's a big headache that we can get over, and then we can have just China to deal with. So,
What do you think,
I'm not so
oxymoron?
positive. Look, Pakistan has been in shambles before, but it never really agreed to this. I think in 1972, it was 71, it was in much worse state than it is now. So even though economy was falling, so they didn't agree to that now, because basically Pakistani army doesn't care about economy, and it's like CCP. So it doesn't matter to them if
No, that's
the Pakistan is falling.
I don't think that's fair to Pakistan or the CCP. They might care less, like the ideology and staying in power. Like economy always matters. You cannot say like they don't care about the economy. Like everything is tied to the economy. Even
No,
the Taliban cares about the economy.
okay, so basically they do care about economy, but as long as
they
Pakistani
do
army is
care
safe, they
about it
don't
now.
need a lot of people.
They do care about it
Hello?
now because they're losing a lot of their credibility. Like the army is really losing a lot of its credibility because things have, again and again going to the IMF. Things are not really been going good in Pakistan, and people have really, like, they know that army has been behind all of the situation of Pakistan for all these years, and they're really getting fed up. So it's like that is why you can see even General Bajwa's, I think last year, comments that now we need more economy than
Okay,
geostrategy.
we need to
Okay, but
end
the
this
army
soon.
has
But
said this before.
yeah, go on. Oh, they have this.
Okay,
You're saying
I
we
have
have
one
been
question,
before.
Armin.
But no, but before we
Okay.
move to that question, can we all agree, okay, that based on all this conversation that we have had, that the partition was a mistake? Can we agree on that?
No, Hindus got saved because of partition.
Huh?
I think a lot more Hindus would have been killed if there was no partition. It was blessing in disguise. The
Okay, it
partition
was
of
a
India
blessing in disguise.
for Hindus.
PK, what do you think? The
I
partition was a
don't
mistake.
agree with that. I think
With who? With Oxymoron or me? With who?
with oxymoron. I think
So
like
you say,
partition
so you
was a
think,
mistake.
okay,
Yeah.
so you're saying the partition was a mistake. Go on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, I understand like his point of view that there are differences and there is radicalism, but I think if we would have been together, this kind of radicalism wouldn't have happened. The partition is.
No.
I'm not saying that radicalism is not there, but I think the partition fueled a lot of that. And and a lot of radicalism actually happened in Pakistan after the indoctrination of that, I don't know, which some leader came, right? That dictator, and then they indoctrinated them in all their schools and stuff like that. That Hindus are bad, they are kafirs and stuff like that. Before that, people were quite moderate there. Like people are people. Like if I was born in a Muslim family, I would have been Muslim. If I'm born Hindu, like if you teach people to be good people, they'll be good people. But if you create an environment to hate the other, they'll hate. That's a fact.
Basically, what I think I agree with PK, but I don't know if it's true for sure, is that dividing Muslims and Hindus from each other and having Muslim minorities in India and Hindu minorities in Pakistan has increased the divide between Muslims and Hindus, and has increased the tension and hatred towards each other. That's what it, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay, I have data. So basically, in Bangladesh, population of Hindus was like 24% in 1950s, and now it's around 8%. So basically, as opposed to India, where Muslim population has been increasing in every single district, it went from 8% to 15%. So
But
basically, I'm trying to
but
say is that it is not secularism that protects India. It's Hinduism, nature of Hindu people that has protected Hindus. If the number of Muslims grow to 30% or something, I think Hindus are screwed, and
I
there
just
will be
would
genocide
like
coming.
to say one thing, that your data is kind of correct. Like, yeah, there was high number of Hindus, but I think the exodus of Hindus was more due to the extremely bad economic situation after the 1971 Bangladesh thing. And it's not just Hindus who left in mass from Bangladesh, it was also a lot of Muslims. So it was more of a dire economic situation rather than a huge persecution that made the Hindus leave. I would say that was more of a reason.
But then,
Okay,
if we
you
have
were
historical patterns that Muslims were safe under Hindu kings, but not other way around, I think there's nature
okay.
of society
That
that
I can't
contributes to this.
Okay. We have to fact check all of these numbers. Okay, but we can. So we're not going to do it here. But can you, as you were going to ask one last question, and then we can move end the stream. What were you going to ask, Oxymor? Or also PK, if you want
Okay,
to add a
I
question.
have two questions, but I'll ask one. So, do you think that if terrorism is used as diplomatic policy in certain region, do you think by foreign interventions, do you think it's the secessionist tendencies are valid? So
Wait,
basically,
PK, did
the
you?
Kashmiris. Basically,
What were
the
you?
radicalization of Kashmir started in 1990s, 1987, when Indian government took the election. So that was the point radicalization started. If elections were held before that and Pakistan didn't intervene, I think the Jammu and Kashmir would have gone with India as a whole. But Pakistan kept denying it because when Pakistan invaded, there was, I think they wiped up
Wait,
one third
PK.
of population in
I can.
some
Your
regions
audio
like
is.
Baramulla.
Hold on, PK. Do you understand what happened? Do you
No,
understand what you said?
his audio is breaking a bit.
Okay, your audio is not that good. Can you make it more concise and simple? Fast. In one sentence, how would you describe this
Okay.
question?
Okay. Do you think that if there's foreign intervention in secessionist movement, like terrorist activities and radicalization, people deserve to the people deserves right to referendum because there's
Because you cannot, because there will
people
always be influence from
deserve.
other. Oh my God, hold on. Yes, because there will always be. You cannot just dismiss an entire group of people's request for cessation just because some of them are being influenced by terrorism or foreign forces. Okay, because if that was your standard, then every single cessation, legitimate request for cessation, could be completely just ended by simply having one terrorist attack, or having one, like, you could basically make it illegitimate by helping them through foreign forces, or by people who are against the cessation could get into the groups and do a terrorist attack. Like, you have like, if you have like 95% of the group of people doing peacefully requesting cessation, and also this being an eternal matter, but then you will, just because you could always find elements of foreign influence in some of the people, and also terrorist groups within some of the people, is not reason enough for you to dismiss the entirety of the demand.
Do you think that invasion of Crimea is justified, and it should United Nations and United States should recognize Russia's accession to Crimea, because it's same thing. They want it to be part of Russia. It's a very Russian majority region.
That's not the way you're supposed to do it. That's a military. No, it's not, well, I mean, in the same way, it's similar. Like how? Like, it's one of them is an act of war against a sovereign country. The other one is a request for a referendum. It's like, so how is it similar? Like, we are supporting. No, look, listen. We are supporting. We think a referendum reduces these acts of violence. Okay, we think part of the reasons why you have terror attacks is because you are not giving into the demands of people. I'm not justifying it, but that's the outcome. Okay, we're trying to find ways to reduce violence. Supporting Putin's annexation of Crimea is supporting violence. Supporting a referendum is a method to reduce violence. It's the polar opposite.
Okay, can I make one last point?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, let PK make his point, because PK was also
so India. I think when it comes to referendum, India shouldn't hold referendum.
Wait, hold on. When PK wanted to say.
Okay, sorry. I just make a point. Like, also, like, people in like Donbass area and all, they were not actively fighting for referendum. They had feeling for Russia, but they weren't like actively fighting a war with, like, making demands from Ukraine or fighting and stuff like that. So that's a bit different.
Yeah, this was Putin's narrative that these people want to be. They just had Russian tendencies. There was no campaign for a referendum. If there was a campaign for a referendum, maybe I would support their right to be heard and their demands to be met. Okay, that's a different thing than a country, another neighboring country, forcing its will on you. Okay,
do you think India should just, instead of last point, do you think India should just Indian army came to save Kashmir on behalf of Kashmiri government? Do you think India should just pull back and let Pakistan and China decide the referendum thing?
No, I think India should be taking. Can I answer? I think
because
India
if Kashmir goes independent.
Oh my God! Can I answer?
Yeah.
I think India should take an active role in providing the environment for that referendum to be taking place.
But what does India owe them? Why does India owe them anything?
Why does India owe them anything? India is in that region. India would be doing this out of its self-interest to provide stability in the area. It's not about
but
owing.
It goes against. It goes against Indian interest.
It doesn't. It's within India's interest for that area to become stable. It's against it's against the interest of political parties like the BJP, because they welcome tension. They benefit from tensions, but it's not within the best interest of India.
Okay, so if Kashmir goes independent, India there will be a lot of Chinese and Pakistani influence. To counter that influence, India will have to spend a lot of its resources in stabilizing the region. It will make crazy deals with China, and there will be acts of terrorism and all that. So India will
Okay,
have to spend a lot of
now you're sounding
resources.
like Putin. Okay, you cannot. Okay, so again, you cannot take people's right to self-determination away because of you fear-mongering about the consequences. Okay, usually taking
Yeah, but
people's right to self-determination away has the consequences of that is higher than what you're suggesting, especially when you already have a precedent for within your constitution that you promised them a referendum. The precedent was
okay.
already there.
About
That has already been
promise.
normalized. No, we can't
About
add more
promise.
points. We can't add more points. I have to go. Let's
Okay,
talk
last
about the
point. Last point.
constitution. Oh my god,
Okay,
that was
promise. So US had a verbal agreement with that they won't be expanding NATO towards
no
towards Eastern Europe, which was verbal
nonsense.
promise. Yeah,
No, okay,
there was
okay.
verbal promise, and India verbally assured people that there would be referendum. It
Was
didn't
it
write
okay?
that there would
First of
be
all,
referendum.
was that not in the referendum thing? Was that not in the constitutional promise? That was a constitutional promise.
No. India was ready
Okay,
to negotiate until 1950s
hold on.
when
Let me
there
ask
was no
PK.
constitution of India.
PK, was that not?
I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
Okay, maybe
Okay.
maybe my information is wrong about this, but I thought this was written within it was a constitutional promise. One, okay. Second of all, NATO expansion is not a promise that you could give because NATO is not expanding. Expansion means like they are growing. Like expansion is not a good way to look at it. Other people are voluntarily joining it. NATO is not going and recruiting countries. Other countries are requesting to join NATO, and they have every right to.
But then Russia was denied from NATO.
Yeah, that was wrong. I agree with that.
Yeah, and then you put anti-ballistic
No, but
missiles on Eastern Europe.
I agree with the fact that Russia not being ignored into joining NATO was a mistake. So there you go. We agree on this.
Okay, I forgot.
NATO should grow to taking over the whole world. I think every single country eventually should be. Okay.
But I would just
okay.
say
So India had its constitution in 1950s. So before the constitution was enacted, India was ready to negotiate about Kashmir, but then it wasn't after constitution was enacted.
My understanding was that NATO didn't let Russia join, but Kenny in the live chat is saying no, NATO wanted Russia to join. So I don't know how it stopped because Russia wanted it, and if NATO wanted it, then why did it not happen? We could look into that later. But we keep saying that last points, and then more points are added to the last point. So I really have to go now.
Okay.
Okay. Let's pick up this discussion later. Okay, PK. But did you want to say some final words?
No, it's okay. Nothing much to add.
All right, guys. This was interesting. Let's continue these discussions. These are fascinating. I enjoy talking to you guys. So thank you for coming up here.
Yeah. Thanks, Armin. Thanks. Okay.
All right, guys.
Have a great day.
Bye. Okay. Bye.
Like and subscribe before you go.